Today I have Steve Washer with me from Windsor, Connecticut, an expert marketer and the founder of Brainy Video, a company that specializes in helping business owners get a handle on video marketing so that they can create an authority presence in their markets. Steve has over 20 years of experience in the non-broadcast market, working with C-level executives in all industries to further the communications goals of their companies, with video marketing playing a big role in that. His personable approach to education and his ability to communicate video marketing concepts in ways that make it fun, informative, and easy to learn are just some of the qualities that make Steve such a great resource for anyone challenged by running a small business. So welcome, Steve. I'm really thrilled to have you here with us today.
I'm thrilled to be here, Nigel. Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. And it's so great to talk to somebody who is an expert in video marketing, because I have practically zero experience in that regard. So hopefully my questions will sound intelligent. So our topic for this episode is all about video marketing and how photographers can use it to enhance their marketing and business presence online. So let's start with a little bit of background. You're very well known in the internet marketing world as an educator and a consultant, but can you give us a brief rundown of how you came to be so involved with video marketing?
Actually, I've been involved with video marketing since well before there was an internet. Let's say that the internet came around in, I think, 1994 or so, and I had been fairly heavily involved in it in one way or another since 1986, when I went to graduate school for video, because I wanted to teach. I partially funded my graduate school education by doing video marketing for small companies in the town where I was going to school. I didn't want a little thing like not knowing what I was doing to get in my way. And I found out, hey, that's kind of a recipe for most entrepreneurs. So I didn't realize it at the time, but I was kind of doing the thing that I would be doing later on when I knew what I was doing. Then later on, I went to work for Konica, which is a fairly large imaging manufacturing company. And for about 10 years, I was the head of their worldwide video production and marketing departments, and oversaw the creation of lots and lots of marketing videos. And I imagine, we helped them create, hundreds of millions in sales. So that was in the offline world. That was all really before the internet came along. So I left the corporation and started my own shop in 2005, which was the same year that YouTube started, and noticed that there was a real need for smaller companies to have access to the kind of information that the larger companies were working with. So I decided to sort of focus in that area, and just have been working there ever since, really.
Yeah, and I followed quite a lot of the stuff that you've been doing over there at Brainy Video. And I have to say, it takes a lot of the things that people feel somewhat apprehensive or nervous about with creating videos away. I mean, you address a lot of those problems, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But why do you feel that video marketing should be an important part of someone's marketing plan?
That's a great question. Well, of course, in almost every market that's worth anything, there's a glut of providers, right? Just like on every street corner, there's 4 gas stations. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for that. There's a market for it. And there are lots of men and women who are interested in photography. And today, with iPhones and all this kind of stuff, there are many amateurs who consider themselves good enough to go pro almost. So how do you distinguish yourself in these sort of white-hot markets? What makes you unique? Well, if you can talk about it, you can own it. If you can approach the problem differently than your competitor, then you'll gain the attention of the right potential client. So what makes video the cherry on top of uniqueness is that there's really no competition for being the best you that you can be. And where do you prove that except in a video? Plus, our brains are wired for video. I think something like 80% of all web content now is video. People get it. They want more of it. They can't get enough of it, it seems. And so the thing is that, I hate to say this, but if a picture is worth 1,000 words, they've proved that actually a bit of video is worth 1,000,000 words. So there's a way that you can get your message down in layers. And if you're into that sort of thing, if you understand that meanings can be layered, then you begin to understand the potential of video marketing.
That's interesting. Layered meanings. Can we get an example of what something like that might look like?
Sure. So let's say that you want to have a really strong call to action, but you don't want to come out and say, okay, now everybody go to my website at photographymarketingmasters.com and go to the podcast and click on, my latest interview. That's a lot. That's a mouthful, right? But what you'd rather do is talk about the beauty of photography, but you still want someone to go to your website. So what do? Well, you have a lower third. So while you're talking about one thing, you're giving them the visual design, and a link in there is telling them to do something else. So the meaning of what I'm saying, which is there's the beauty of this particular style of photography, is being augmented and added to by a link that's saying, go here and look at it.
Okay, so essentially you are using different ways of attracting people's attention to something without just blatantly holding a big placard up in the air that says, oi, go click on here or go to this website.
I would also differentiate between attention and interest. There is a place for attention in a video that's at the very beginning, in the first few seconds, when you want to get people's attention. And then there's interest, which is creating the up and down, which is creating the suspense and the layers of meanings that keep people involved in your video.
What would you say is the single most important element of a successful marketing video?
Oh, wow. Well, I would say it's not unlike that of a successful photograph, and that is authenticity. I love talking about this because, especially to photographers, because they understand what I'm talking about. I don't have to, explain all the basic level meanings. But look at this. And in video, there's two halves to authenticity. There's being yourself in the right role for you and the best you can be. And then there's the video's image and audio. In other words, the channel. And it's just like photography. If you have a vision for a photograph, for example, but the exposure sucks, the focus is in the wrong area, the composition is off, that ruins the authenticity of your vision, of your shot. By the way, that's why I don't get why people think you should just be able to take a video with even less care than you would a photograph. In fact, you can do yourself a lot of harm if you do it badly, just as you would in photography, which is not to say that you have to either be professional or go home. There's a level of quality where the quality issue itself recedes into the background and is no longer an issue, and anything better than that might actually give you a point of diminishing returns. So that is to say that authenticity is the single most important element, because in video, people can sense if you're kind of not being yourself, if you're putting on an act. And even if you are putting on an act for the sake of putting on an act, sometimes that doesn't come across either. And that's why, just dispense with the act altogether and just be authentic.
I've heard it said that for a successful video as well, that the audio, oddly enough, is a really critical component. It's not just the picture that people see, but the sounds that they hear, and the quality of the audio is very important.
It's a little bit more important than the video. It's about 10 to 15% more important than the image, and the image is very important. That was astonishing to me when I first learned about that, but it's very true. In fact, I've done experiments on that. I've done side-by-side comparisons. You can go to my blog and look at some of the videos on audio and just, watch them and listen to them and see what the difference is. It is astonishingly important.
That's very interesting because, on the other hand, you hear of communication psychologists saying things like most of our communication is nonverbal.
Yeah, a lot of our communication is nonverbal, but remember that with video, it's one-way communication. So you don't get those social cues from your audience that then trigger certain, physical actions on your part, either unconsciously, subconsciously, or consciously. And so you have to just be the best you can be in that moment and put yourself on video. So yes, your actions on video should be authentic, but that's why it's so important that you get the channel right, Nigel, because if the channel is clogged, then that communication that you're working so hard to get across doesn't come across. The social cues that you're giving out don't come across at all.
Now, you use this word channel, and to me, the channel is something you tune to on the TV. So, if I want to go to CNN or Action News 5 or BBC America, those are channels to me. What does the word channel mean in the context that you're using it? Because it seems somewhat different.
Yeah, good question. Well, Marshall McLuhan famously said that the medium is the message. What it means is that, and I look at the video itself as a channel, photography is a channel, audio is a channel. Well, so when I say channel, I mean channel of communication. Face to face is a channel. So it's however you are choosing to get your message across. So if you choose video as your channel, then you have to just be aware of the elements that go into that channel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Okay. Another question that I'm sure a lot of people have about these videos has to do with how long does my video have to be? Is there an ideal length for a marketing video?
Is there an ideal size for a photograph?
No.
Is there an ideal length for a song?
I suppose if you want it on the radio, 3 minutes or so, I guess.
Okay, so there you go. I think, there are so many different kinds of marketing videos. It's like, should a garage be the same size as the Taj Mahal? So you really want to suit the length of the video to the purpose that you're putting it. So let's say, for example, a sales video. If you're actually selling some kind of a program online, depending on what else is on the page, your sales video might be 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long. If you have a great big sales page underneath it, it might be 5 minutes long as an introduction. A startup video, when I say startup video, I mean like for a business startup, it might be a minute. An opt-in video might be a minute and a half, or a coach video, which is a lot of the kinds of videos that I make that you might have seen on YouTube. Very variable, anywhere from 2 to 20 minutes. Mine are usually around 5 minutes. But these are just rules of thumb, your mileage may vary. One of my best marketing videos, which is a coach video, is almost 13 minutes long. So as long as you can maintain people's interest in the video and it's in the right context or it's in the right forum, then you can make it just as long as it needs to be. I think that the rules of thumb are really just rules of thumb. There's no hard and fast rule about any of this thing. A 1 minute video may be too long if it's boring.
Indeed. So as an example, then, let's say if a photographer wanted to create a welcome video for their website that maybe new email subscribers would see when they first subscribe to an email list, then probably 20 minutes would be rather long for something like that, but maybe a minute, 90 seconds to 2 minutes, perhaps, something like that.
That sounds about right to me, because you want people to be able to get to whatever it is they came to your website for. Most people come to your website because they either have been invited there, or maybe as a result, not so much as a result of a Google search, although it's possibly in the local market that could be true if someone's looking for a service for their wedding or something like that. But generally speaking, a lot of people come to your website as a result of direct referrals. So if you can put something valuable in that video right on the homepage to direct them to some free resource that will get them even more interested in what you're doing, that's all to the good. And so you want to be able to get to that right away. And for that reason, you probably don't want to have a 20-minute video, even though it could be a nice, long educational video that takes them somewhere else, unless you have some particular product to sell them. That's maybe not the best idea. So if the people who are listening to this podcast are in the service end of things, then they probably want that video to be relatively short.
What type of videos could photographers put to use on their websites? Because I know that there's all different styles of video where they can talk in front of a camera, they can talk off camera, they could talk about their different services. What are some ideas that photographers could use to sprinkle through their websites where they could make use of this type of media?
One of the very underutilized ways of using simple videos on your website is to have FAQ videos. And what a great thing to do in a visual medium like photography, right? So if people have a lot of questions about maybe, what goes into a great photograph, the kind of photography that you do, any of these questions that your subscribers get a lot, they should come up with a list of 10 questions and make little 1-minute videos that answer those questions with some kind of photography that they specialize in. That could be a really nice, simple way. They don't even have to appear in those videos. I think that would be a nice thing to do. And then one of the things that I learned from Mike Koenig's is that then you should have another 10 SAQ questions, which are should ask questions. These are the questions that they're not asking yet, but that they should be asking. and make videos about those too. Maybe you appear in those videos for a few seconds at a time so that they can get used to seeing you and interacting with you to some extent. But those are also great, and they can be short little videos as well.
I've seen some photographers use behind the scenes type videos where they'll have somebody videoing them while they're working on a portrait session or even at a wedding or something like that. And they put together these little montage videos, and they're not very long, maybe 2 or 3 minutes at the most, but it gives people an idea of what they can expect when they work with that particular photographer.
Yeah, it's great because it gives people not only an idea of what to expect, but in a non-threatening way, a non-aggressive way. And they're seeing it at a remove, sort of in the third person as though it was a movie. And then they can imagine themselves right in that movie there. It's a sort of results in advance. Video is great for that. And I think that's a great thing for photographers to do. However, it's just one thing. And showing them the behind the scenes part is good, but it answers really only one of the 6 or 7 questions that they should be answering for people. And that particular question may be something about uniqueness, like here's what it's like to work with me in particular, although I don't think it fully answers that question because they might be able to see videos like that on other people's websites. The whole idea of behind the scenes is not a very unique idea. It's a lovely idea in context.
And another one, and I haven't really seen very many people do this actually, but it's very effective, and the photographer doesn't even have to appear in the video in any form, whether it's audio or on camera. And that is where wedding photographers, for example, create a sort of a love story video for their clients, but they use it as part of their marketing. So they'll interview the bride and the groom, but they cut their part out. They just have the bride and groom's responses to certain questions. Or at the wedding itself, they'll record maybe the father's speech or the best man's speech and the things that these people are saying that are very emotional and that kind of thing. And they create these short videos that can be very powerful because, photography is an emotional medium, especially so for weddings and portraits and that kind of thing. Have you seen anything like that used in other types of businesses?
I have not seen it in other businesses besides photography. However, I think it's even underutilized in photography. And I think it's just a wonderful idea because what this does is it gets to the most important question of all, and that is the why question. Why should I hire you? And why should I follow you? Why should I buy into your vision? The only reason people would do that is if they have an emotional response to what you're doing. And that's why photography itself can be so magical, especially if you pair it with the right music to support and enhance that background of mood. So yeah, I think, gosh, Nigel, I think that's just a beautiful thing to do, and more photographers should be making that. They say that media is marketing. In fact, that's going to be the title of one of my web pages. Media is marketing, in that this is the new way to sell. You can sell by not selling. And if there was ever an ideal way to do that, it's to make a video like that, just showing someone on the happiest day of their life, being happy with what you did for them, even though what you did for them was completely invisible. I'll give you an example. This is how Marvel Comics came out of bankruptcy into being worth billions and billions of dollars. So in the 90s, they were about to go bankrupt. And then they sold the rights to their superheroes to, I can't remember if it was Warner or Paramount or anyway, one of those movie companies. And they then made the Spider-Man movie, in the early 2000s. And it was an enormous success. And what happened was, nowhere in that Spider-Man movie is there a commercial for a Spider-Man comic or a Spider-Man pajama set or lunchbox or Twinkies, right? Nowhere in there. However, anytime you saw anything related to Spider-Man, your kids saw that, they wanted it because they had seen the movie. So that's what I mean by the media is the marketing. You don't have to say, oh, it's only for $9.99 and all this stuff. All you have to do is tell a story that makes people laugh and cry and love your creativity. And photography is magic for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And another thing that just popped into my mind while you were saying that as well is videos can be valuable content for a photographer's blog or website in the sense that they could create, for example, a slideshow video of some of the best images from, let's say, a portrait session or a wedding or whatever it happens to be. But then rather than just post that video directly on a web page for someone to just see right away, they could put that behind some kind of a social locker or something whereby people have to share the actual page that it's on in order to see the video. You could put a little thing on there that says for the brides, well, hey, we've got this great video that we created from the wedding. If you want to take a look, share the page, and as a special thank you, you get to see the video. So in that sense, the video serves as some kind of a piece of valuable content that can help to spread the word by giving people a reason to share the content. Is that anything that you have, seen used to good effect before?
I have seen this idea of pay with a tweet or something like that. It's not my favorite way of sharing content because in some sense it's a kind of a pig in a poke. You're not really sure what you're going to see. So I do believe in doing this though, but I believe in doing it after they've seen it. And this is the idea of viral content. And this is the beautiful thing about photography. Again, I'm sure that all of the people who listen to you are proud of the work they do. And the beautiful thing about the work they do is that it's potentially viral. So imagine, for example, that if every job they did, on every job they did, they took a lot of pictures and they fashioned those pictures into some kind of a slideshow and then just put it on their Facebook page with some music underneath it. They don't have to do a great big fancy job with it because the photos will speak for themselves. And then put that on YouTube and put it on Facebook. And just the idea is you want to make it shareable. And shareable means, in this case, it is going to be short. It's going to be very, very short, maybe a minute, 2 minutes at the very most. And you would actually create it in order to be shared. So in that respect, probably Facebook is the best. And you would post these things incessantly. So every time you get a job, you should do something like that.
What are the most common reasons that you hear for people not doing video marketing?
They do tend to fall into some fairly broad but strict categories. It takes too much time to make a video. I don't have the expertise. I don't know what to say. Nervous about being on camera. Don't have the equipment. It's a lot of money. I think those are the big ones. And today, unfortunately, for those of you who haven't done video yet, I'm sorry to say all of these have been annihilated.
So all of those objections and reasons have been blown out the water, have they?
They have. This week, Apple just announced the new iPhone 6. Which is it's going to be able to do slow motion video, 240 frames per second. That is crazy. The first HD camera was $1 million. If you wanted to do slow motion of even, 100 frames per second, just a couple of years ago, that might have been a $50,000 spend. And who was going to do that? Now you can get it in the iPhone in your pocket. It's craziness. So the cost factor is now out the window. If you're going to talk on the phone, you've already got your video camera. As for not enough time, well, if you don't have to set up lights and as long as you can hold the camera out in front of yourself arm's length, you don't even need a microphone. So what kind of time is involved there? Where I spend the most time, actually? Writing the video. I spend a fair amount of time writing the video because I'm doing a lot of teaching and I want to make sure that I'm respecting people's time. So I'll write the video and then I'll let it sit overnight and then look at it again and then I'll record it in 5 minutes. And that takes care of the I don't know what to say on video thing, so you can write it out beforehand. And then there's the part about being nervous about being on camera. To that, I just say, well, get over it. But I totally understand it. I mean, for 10 years, I was behind the camera and I wouldn't get in front of the camera for the same reasons, I suppose. I thought, well, I got to do this. If I'm going to teach this, I have to do it. And then I found out that it was really not that scary a thing.
So at the beginning, you mentioned the idea of a call to action in a video. So I'm assuming that by that you mean there's no point just, in a lot of cases, just putting a video up there and then kind of just walking off at the end of it and not expecting people to do something. So where's the best place to include that?
It's always good, I think, to put one at the beginning and then put 2 of them at the end. So you do one near the beginning of the video to find out more information about the thing I'm talking about. You can go here, okay, let's now talk about what we're going to talk about. And so you can put one right in the introduction. Then Toward the end of the video, you can do a call to action where, let's say you're teaching something about exposure and the importance of having the right lens when you're shooting at night or something like that. And then toward the end of the video, you might say something like, well, to find out my favorite lens for this, go to www. And then at the very end, when you're actually completely finished with your content, you can put a call to action graphic on the end of the video and maybe just let it run for 20 seconds with some outtakes from the video on it. But it would have that call to action right in it. Just something that you can, mock up in Photoshop that then you can put an annotation on in YouTube or that sort of thing. So you can have, I'd say, at least 3 calls to action in the video, and none of them will be obnoxious at all. They can be even kind of enjoyable to watch.
I've seen several people use this idea of putting outtakes at the end. What's the reason for that, other than just that they're funny? Is there a purpose behind doing that?
Oh, yeah. The purpose is to keep people watching. So when they're entertained and you leave them with a good feeling that is associated with that call to action, then they're just more likely to take it, is the theory.
Right. But of course, we have to know that they're funny or something.
Well, funny, odd, just as long as they're not weird. Sometimes if I'm doing a video and I think there's some funny stuff, outtakes in there, I'll do that. I'll always look for that. But if I don't have that, then I'll just do a swishy logo or something like that. It doesn't have to be, really profound or really funny, just as long as you've got some movement.
I think if I was putting outtakes at the end, I'd be kind of worried that they might be more cringeworthy than funny.
You'd be surprised what people would find funny. I did some as a kind of experiment, and people did find them very funny, and so I, kept doing it. But you don't know till you try.
Are there any best practices for creating a video? Any things that people should make sure that they stick to, or certain procedures that they should follow?
There's so many best practices. You want to keep things as simple as possible, especially if you're not doing video. You want to try to do the thing that you can do as well as you can do it, within reason. Get it to 70% and then tweak along the way. You're never going to get things perfect. In fact, we say in video projects are never finished, they're merely abandoned. There's no need to get everything perfect. You'll never get it perfect. I'm sure people kind of feel that way about photography as well, and I'm sure they know exactly what I'm talking about. So keep it simple, keep it clean. In other words, don't have a really messy background. If you're going to be shooting in your home, make sure the background is completely appropriate to what you're talking about. If you're talking about, for example, how to set up your dark room, don't do it at the zoo in the elephant house or something like that. Don't have like a non sequitur type of background. Make it appropriate for what you're doing. The background is incredibly important, really, really important. So the next thing is the audio, and we've talked about that. Make sure your audio is clean. And the other thing I would say is be respectful of your audience's time. Don't drone on and on in your video. Know what you're going to say it, and try to be as entertaining as you can and get on.
I noticed that in a lot of your videos, you use a very plain background so that you can superimpose messages on top of that in post-production and that kind of thing.
You're talking about green screen, yeah. So I generally shoot with a green screen these days, unless I'm shooting in the office by my computer. Those are my two kind of go-to styles, I guess. And yeah, I do like the green screen for the fact that it's very, very flexible. And I can bring my alter ego in and have conversations with myself and do all kinds of fun things like that. Photographers can do that. They probably have the space for it. So if you feel comfortable doing that, I think green screen videography can be quite helpful.
What about equipment? I know a lot of photographers these days especially are using DSLRs that have video capability.
They're almost overkill. Yeah, this is somewhere where a photographer has a big advantage over even what I'm doing. I don't generally use a DSLR just because I'm not as comfortable with the interface. But a photographer can do much better videos than mine. I think that the video quality that a photographer can get is almost just a non-issue. Anything they do is going to look good. And I apologize for not even bringing that up before. But using a DSLR is probably the best thing that a photographer could use these days. It gives you that lovely bokeh in the background. It allows you to have the exact right composition, so you're getting your subject perfect and makes everything look like Hollywood.
What about software for editing all these videos? Is there anything special that photographers need to do that?
If you're going to have DSLR material, that's fairly dense, and so you're going to want a decent editing program. So if you're on a Mac, I would recommend Final Cut Pro. If you're on a PC, then Premiere Pro. They can handle that level of material.
And then we've got the final product. So we've created this video, we've edited it, and I know that there's a lot of different formats that the video can be output in at that point, but is YouTube still the best place for people to host videos online?
Well, it's one place, and you need it there for SEO purposes, but you really need it on your blog just as much. You need it on Amazon S3 so that you have control over it. You need it on Facebook. You need it on Twitter. You need it on G+. You need it in a lot of different places. Sometimes you can use the YouTube video embed code in different places, but that's not always the best place for a video or a video series. It just depends on the purpose of the video. For example, a sales video, you wouldn't want to have that on YouTube. Sometimes YouTube just takes videos down, so you don't want them owning your asset. That's why it's always good to put it on Amazon S3.
Vimeo, that's another place as well that's good for hosting.
Yeah, it is. It is. I have a Vimeo account. I use it quite often, actually. If you have a Vimeo Pro account, there's a lot you can do with that. You can restrict the video to being seen on certain websites. You can put calls to action in there. There's lots of things that you can do with the controls on the video. I think Vimeo is good, and especially for creatives like photographers, I actually think it's possibly a better site for marketing your videos than YouTube is, although you still need the YouTube presence. And so what I would do is put them on both Vimeo Pro and YouTube, and they have links going from the Vimeo video to the YouTube version of the video and vice versa.
I've heard in the past horror stories of people who've said all of a sudden YouTube just took my entire channel offline. Is that a real threat?
Let me tell you a horror story about YouTube. In fact, I almost left YouTube entirely. This is why you have to be careful of YouTube. As I said before, you don't own your content when it's on YouTube. And one time I made a video called Why You Shouldn't Buy Views for Your Videos on YouTube. Okay, that was the subject. And I went into all the reasons why it's not a good idea to buy views. And it was something about, it's fairly unethical. You don't get a true impression of what your video is all about. You don't really know how it's performing. So it's a really artificial kind of thing. So I went into all this sort of thing, and YouTube took my video down. And I wanted to see what happened. So I found out that someone had bought views for my video and put them in my channel. So for $20, anyone can go on your channel and buy views for it, and YouTube will take your video down. You have no control. You don't own that asset. That's something you must understand. So when I say you need to put your videos on YouTube for SEO purposes, that's exactly what I mean. For no other purpose, though.
You've mentioned SEO a couple of times, and that's one of my pet topics. I love to do that stuff. Can photographers do, or what should they do, to make sure that they get the best SEO bang for their buck, as it were?
I'm going to give you a little crash course here really quick. See if I can do it in like a minute. First of all, post a lot. Put a lot of videos up there. Get at least 100 videos up there. When you're tagging the videos, make sure you include your name and your personal name and your business name. Now, the reason for this is that when the related videos come up on the right-hand side, you want them all to be yours. And if you do that name and business name thing, they will be. Put the subject of the video, research the subject using keyword tools or whatever. Put that right in the front of the title, and then again at the end of the title. Use the description, make it at least 100 words. Make the video interactive with a transcription. Download the transcription that YouTube gives you. Rewrite it because it'll be 70% incorrect, but use their time code and just make the corrections in the grammar and the spelling, and then repost it up there. That makes it interactive, and then when YouTube understands the language at a text level, it'll be easier for them to to SEO it. Put the URL of the video itself at the bottom of the description, and then drive traffic, the right kind of traffic, to that video, and then drive traffic from that video to your website by putting a clickable link at the very top of the description. There, did I get that in under a minute?
I think so.
Awesome.
Wow, that's the fastest explanation of video SEO that I think I've ever heard. Great job. So if you could offer just 3 tips to anyone thinking about starting a video marketing campaign, what would they be?
Talk to your best clients. Do a target profile interview. Ask them the kind of problems that they had for which they came to you, and transcribe the interview. Don't translate it. Use their words. Because when you get into making videos, it's very important to use the language of your client. Use that language. That's step 1, okay? Step 2, create 3 tentpole videos that will sort of become the main videos that you use to talk about your business to potential clients. So whatever the 3 stakes in the ground are for you, what are the 3 pillars upon which you base your business? Make 3 videos about that. Put it on your website. Put it on YouTube. That's number 2. The number 3, use a resource like lead pages or something, some way of making a landing page rather than using your blog to start building your audience. If you have an audience, this is the way to make your audience bigger. I just did this yesterday, and I have an audience, right? But yesterday I decided I wanted to divide my audience up into because I'm starting a new campaign for something, and put a video on a landing page, and something like 100 people signed up just to do this, and this is on a fairly small list. So it's important to make this landing pages and not just blog pages, because you don't want people to become distracted by all the other things they can do on the page. And then speak to them from time to time. I think people don't speak to their list enough. They maybe, send something out once a month or once a quarter or once a year. That just isn't going to cut it these days. You have to be consistent. And if you can be consistent with video, you will own your market.
That issue that you mentioned there of creating landing pages to support list building, I think that is so important. And it's one thing that I see photographers really missing out of their marketing. If you're listening to this and you think, well, I don't need a landing page because I don't do list building, then start list building.
I think it's important, for photographers, you don't want them to just use your service one time. And it may not be enough. They may not remember the last time they used you. But if you stay top of mind with email marketing, that's just the best, highest ROI marketing you could possibly ever get.
Quick little story here. The one thing that really made me start email marketing when I was working full-time as a photographer, and this really hit home to me at the time because I was sitting at my desk one day. I have Facebook up most of the time in a tab on my computer like most people do, and I happened to hop over there and I noticed from one of my previous clients, and I'd photographed her and her family 6 months prior, and she puts a little status update on Facebook that says, "Hey, does anyone know a good photographer who can photograph my kids?"
Oh, no.
I felt like a real idiot. Well, first of all, I was quite ticked off because I thought, surely she remembers that we created these portraits of her and her family, and she loved them, by the way. I mean, she was thrilled with them. And so I used the opportunity to get in touch with her, and I said, "Hey, I see you're looking for a photographer. By the way, I photograph children, and I'd love to photograph your kids in the park or wherever they happen to be." "Oh, fantastic." And we did it. So really, I dodged a bullet there. But how many other bullets whizzed by without me even seeing them?
That's a great story. I mean, that's painful, but you were able to turn the situation around, which is great. But this is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of being top of mind. People are very busy. We lead bifurcated lives. We lead, too much multitasking going on, and they just don't remember. And so, and this gets back to what I was talking about before. If you can use video to explain the why of what you do, that's what people will remember.
Absolutely. That is so important. Well, Steve, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I have really enjoyed our chat today, and I'm certainly a lot more knowledgeable about video marketing than I was before we started. I am probably going to go and maybe even try some of these videos for myself, see how that goes. But I just want to say thank you on behalf of everybody for being so generous with your time and your expertise and knowledge and sharing that with everybody. And it's been wonderful to have you on here.
Well, thank you very much, Nigel. It's my pleasure.
Well, you take care and have a great day, okay?
All right. Thanks, Nigel. You too.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.